We welcome you to another episode of Mill Valley's Curtain Theatre podcast, Behind the Curtain, an official Curtain Theatre production. More information can be found at curtaintheatre.org.
Okay, so we're here with the trio that kind of brought this all to life 25 years ago. And I guess, John, for you, my question is, what was the seed of thought?
Well, it was a trio plus two. I mean, a great deal of credit has to go to Steve Coleman and to Michael Clifford, who directed the first few plays, because without them, the first play never would have happened. He designed the set and she directed and casted it. And it was very fortuitous because my first real experience of live Shakespeare was as a graduate student at Berkeley in John Hinckley Park with the Berkeley Shakespeare. And it was only later I found out that Michael had directed some of those plays. But because of that experience and the fact that there was a 100-year anniversary of Mill Valley in 2001, and we had an unused stage sitting below our lovely library, I thought to myself, why not do a Shakespeare play as part of this celebration? And I thought of doing As You Like It because it has this kind of countercultural theme of the noble court being exiled to the countryside, to the forest. Which fit perfectly the setting around the stage. So Steve agreed to do the set, and we went to a woman named Ann Brebner, who was the administrator for the Mark Fishkin's Mill Valley Film Festival. And we said to Ann, we'd like to do this play. And Ann said, well, do you have a cast? And we said, no. Do you have a director? And we said, no. She said, well, then there's no way that you can do it. So fortunately, I think it was Abby Wasserman who mentioned Michael Clifford's name and said, get in contact with her and see if she's willing to direct it. And I did, and she was. And so then the connection to Don and Michele was established, and then there was this Mill Valley connection because Michael had gone to high school in Mill Valley and Michele had two.
I lived in high school. I lived in Mill Valley too, and Michael, I have to say, I've known since her parents knew my parents. I've known her since I was a kid, and we did theater together in Minnesota as well as out here. And she's somebody who can talk you into doing any crazy thing. Either once in a while you think, wait a minute, how did I get here? Oh, Michael. My favorite moment with her was actually going to see a production that she had directed down in San Leandro, I think it was. And I was just going to go to the show with her. She said, come pick me up because I need a lift. And I went over and picked her up, and she brought out stuff, including a costume and a script, and said, you're going on tonight. I had never seen this play before. I didn't know what it was about, but they were missing. Somebody got sick or something, so it's the kind of thing Michael would think nothing about just asking you to do it because it seemed natural to her. You just went ahead and did it. It was crazy.
For example, the first summer we did Midsummer, which I think was our second year, she basically fired the Puck character before the final weekend and just went on as Puck herself for the run. So yeah, she thinks on her feet.
She thinks on her feet, indeed.
You were in the politics of Mill Valley, right? Were you the mayor at the time?
No. I did 2 terms on the city council and served my 1 rotating year as mayor. But I was off the council at that time, but was still in contact with the city manager and was being updated on the preparations for the 100th anniversary by him. And that's, I think, probably what made me realize that there was this, to me, gap, this artistic gap in the procedures, and that there was this unused stage that was just begging to be trod upon by actors.
It's kind of an amazing space, I think, too, because, I mean, I've done actually a lot of outdoor Shakespeare in different places in the country, and this little amphitheater that we have here is magic, because it's very intimate, and you don't ever have to think about using, microphones, and you have this relationship to the audience that's really close because they are literally in your laps and you're in theirs, and it allows for a different feel to the performing that everybody is in on it. And in the first years, actually, we performed on the Tambark in front of the stage because it was so sunny. The bay trees hadn't grown up yet, that you couldn't see the stage. It was in shadow, and it was just too dark. So we would perform. So we were literally performing in the audience. I'm glad those days.
I should say it should have been Tambark, but I think it was we just kicked up a lot of dust.
We kicked up, right?
I remember actually literally walking out in the dust in the very first, As You Like It, and there was a lot of it. And partly because also we weren't expecting such a big audience, so the audience could go up the hillside, which was all we needed.
So was your original scores and some of the traditional music part of day one?
It's the memory is a little fuzzy, but I wasn't composing anything for the very first show. I know we only did 3 days for the very first run, and Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I can't remember exactly where all the music came from. I think it was mostly there was a little bit of traditional Irish in there. I think Michael had for one of the famous songs, had a melody from, I think Stephen Pitcher wrote
she
it.
would sing.
She had certain melodies, but as the years, usually I would go about and find books, to find melodies that had been used in Shakespeare, and then gradually over time we started, making our own. I started making my own, but she was always very, very open to musical ideas, and as were later directors, and so that was always a thing. Often the music is the thing that kind of sets the setting. We've done a lot of the shows that are set in Italy, so we have to learn some Italian music or make up something that sounds vaguely Italian. And when we have had, like last year with Midsummer, it was Irish music. This summer it's going to be sort of American style music because we're kind of setting the show roughly in 1900. So the music and the costumes and the set really help determine where we are in time.
Well, and the music is really integral to the plays because, of course, sound rises, and you're down in this little bowl, and the musicians are at the bottom of this little bowl, and so the music lets people know that something's going on down there. It attracts them to come down and see what's happening and maybe stay and watch the play or come back and watch a subsequent one. And the music also is a nice, gentle way to signal the end of intermission and that people should get back to their seats and get ready for the second part of it. So I think that we've been extremely fortunate to have musical accompaniment as really an integral part of the performances.
When you got Michael and Steve and these two involved, did you still need to remain involved with that first year so that Mill Valley was supportive of this thing happening?
Well, the first few years I was kind of the producer, filled the producer role because we hadn't quite established with Park and Recreation that this should be an ongoing thing. In fact, we didn't even know after the first year that it was going to become an ongoing thing. And so I was the interface with the Park and Rec Department and with the city bureaucracy, so to speak, to ensure that we got our dates at the park because we had a kind of a window of weekends, and that window was from about mid-August to mid-September because the Mill Valley Fall Arts Festival traditionally is the third weekend in September. So we had a possibility of a maximum of 4 weekends with the one extra day, Memorial Day, so
Labor Day.
Labor Day rather, so potentially 9 performances. And it's gone between, kind of 7 and 9. I think we've kind of settled on 7.
I think we've settled on 9.
Yeah, it's
It used
on
to
9.
be 7 for a long time.
We
and
were
then-
talking about shortening it at a certain point, but lately it's been ending on Labor Day, so although we have in some years gone past Labor Day for the following weekend.
So what compelled you to do a second year?
The people that were involved, the principals all really enjoyed doing it. Steve enjoyed building the set, and Don and Michele et al. Enjoyed the music, and Michael enjoyed directing. And as you said, Michele, it's the place becomes an attraction once you know it and once you've been used to performing in it.
Calls to you.
And it's true, though, that we did very little promotion, the classic sense. And a lot of the audience really was people who just happened by, and they happened to see it. And, they were riding their bike by, or they had their dog, or whatever. So it was, it grew very organically over time that way. But and getting back to your point about the music is that sonically, we're very fortunate, and it's because of where the library building is in position in relation to the stage, is the sound kind of bounces back. It doesn't just go away. If we were in a big open field, the sound would just leave. But especially when you have the background of the set behind us and you have the background, you can get by without, for example, amplifying the instruments. I really like having no electricity in the production. I consider that a great feature. Although we've done it a couple times for a couple musicals, we needed a keyboard, so we had some electricity. But I think I think it's a rarity in this day and age to not have lights, and not have microphones, to not have any of that stuff.
It's interesting to think about Homestead Valley and the little stage in Homestead Valley, and how different that situation is because it's completely flat below it, and you don't have the containment that you were mentioning in terms of the sound values. And so, for years and years, they had a Mozart festival, and I used to go to those Mozart festivals, and they'd get up on the stage and they'd play, and we'd sit in the audience and listen to them, and it was great fun. But it really was not set up for theater performance.
No, it's really set up for events, I feel like, for weddings and things like that. It works really well, but it's not, it does sort of, it's too open and flat, and you'd have to build something for sight lines and stuff.
Yeah.
No, we're really lucky that we have an amphitheater. There's nothing like it, and it's a little amphitheater. If only we had a backstage.
One of the things, but also, we're sort of a training ground in a way, both for actors and for the audience. We're often a first Shakespeare experience for many people. A lot of kids come and they've never seen a show before. But also a lot of the actors we have are quite young, and this is like their first, and several, a bunch of them have gone on to great careers in acting. But I think the training of having to project, not in an impossible place like, a football field or something, but in a place where you can sort of play with the sound and see how your voice projects. I think it's very valuable training for the actors.
Okay, given the footnote that Shakespeare arguably is the greatest playwright historically known, why Shakespeare? Besides the obvious, because it is here's why I ask, because there is an element that it is a community theater you're presenting, and there are families and there are young children, and it seems one might think Shakespeare's too academic, not inviting to a community.
Well, I think the proof is in our audience. The young people that come every year, every year there's more. It seems like there's more kids, and the fact that we don't dumb it down, we don't oversimplify it, but there are funny things and musical things and sword fights and all kinds of stuff. I mean, we're asking the audience to come up to our level. We're not going down too low for them, and there are definitely people for whom it's not a great entertainment opinion, and those kids will go over to the playground hopefully. But I think as far as Shakespeare itself, why don't you elaborate on why you think it's important?
I always have a hard time. It's just like, why not? Shakespeare's a funny thing. I mean, I've just been doing it for my whole life, so it's hard for me to be objective in a way. But I think that a lot of people are introduced to Shakespeare on the page in school. And it's very hard sometimes for people to get it off the page. It's hard for me to get up some of the plays I'm less familiar with to really get them on get them off the page. But it's really easy when you see it acted. I mean, it's not meant to be read. It's meant to be seen and performed. And so the stories are very entertaining. It's just great entertainment. At the same time, it's really wonderful poetry. And you do have to do a little adjustment for a modern audience in terms of cutting, partly because we can't sit for 3.5 hours anymore. But most of it is amazingly approachable, that you don't have to do anything to it. There are some, especially jokes, that have to get cut because they don't make any sense to us anymore. But most of it is so human, and it just, I don't know, I think he was an alien. There's something, somehow he just manages to capture human experience in such a way that there's something for you in all parts of your life. At various times you come across the same plays over and over at different ages. They're entirely different to you because of the way that they speak to human experience that is different at different ages. So when you're a little kid, you love to see Midsummer Night's Dream because somebody wears a donkey head. Or it's really because there's a character called Puck who talks to you and you think that's very cool. My grandkids still talk about Puck. But later, you identify with different characters, and somehow he has captured a human experience that's so profoundly beautiful that it provides you with this ammunition for dealing with craziness in everyday life. We are now doing a play about people who are seeking good government, who have been betrayed by their government, and they are trying to
first run away,
and then to seek the rule that they deserve. They're seeking a good government, and that's everybody's experience. In quite apart from just the political situation, which tout ça change, it is your life. You feel like you're always looking for. I think in the various stages in your life, ways of finding balance in your life and finding good government, and how to get past all the horrible people. There are horrible people at the beginning, but what's great is that there are horrible people in the beginning of the play, but because it's a comedy, they come around, they learn things, they change ridiculously well he often brings down, fairies to change them, but they meet a monk in the woods who changes their mind about everything and they become good people. You're waiting for the redemption of society. And I think all societies are waiting for a redemption in society at various times in their life. So that's something to know, that it's been going on a long time, that that humans have created these pieces of art that provide us with the ammunition to understand and try to deal with it.
We should add that we really focus on the comedies pretty much, and we're not, just doesn't seem like 2 PM on a summer Saturday. Do you want to, get too deep into something like
Can you have
Macbeth or Hamlet?
Can you have a dog run across the Lear?
But I think just people need to have fun. I mean, there's so much bad stuff going on.
Well, I would say, first of all, that Shakespeare is not at all academic.
Yes.
And I would say, secondly, that Shakespeare did not write to be read. He wrote to be acted. And I truly believe that you do not understand Shakespeare until you've actually seen Shakespeare acted. And I have gone back and I have read plays after having seen them, and I got more out of reading them after having seen them than I ever would have got simply reading them cold.
Absolutely.
So when you had the seed of an idea of a play as part of the 100th anniversary, was Shakespeare your immediate choice?
Oh, absolutely. No, and I knew I wanted to do that play, and partly I knew that because I saw two lovely young ladies in front of Dwinell Hall on the Berkeley campus reading the Rosalind and Celia roles.
So there was a bit of your young man energy involved in the choice.
Absolutely. And you know, one of the things about this play is that there's the cherchez la femme element to it, but there's also this very interesting sub-theme of the relationship of people to nature.
For sure.
It's a very big theme, in fact. I think it's, of all the comedies, to me, it's the most philosophical. There's just a lot of philosophy in it, but it's fascinating philosophy. And it means that on the page, anyway, you read it, it doesn't seem like much is happening. People are just going through all the world's a stage kind of speeches that are full of philosophy. But when you see them on the stage, you see them working. Where does that come from? Why did that come up? Why are we talking about the dying deer and things that they're in a real natural situation where they're out in the wilderness, and it's very identifiable. You can really understand it, and so you are drawn to the philosophy. It's really beautiful stuff, but it's quite different from the other comedies that way.
My thing about Shakespeare is that, you know, the reason it's so great is because he was in a company working with actors. He knew these people, he knew them for a couple of decades, and he knew what they could do, he knew what they couldn't do. He knew that this guy had a really funny impression of a something or other, or he knew this guy could dance, and this guy could sing, and this guy was really bad. And so almost all the roles are three-dimensional, even like the spear carrier role, you know, the porter at the gate, you know, somebody else. These were guys Shakespeare worked with for years. He wasn't going to get he couldn't act his way out of a paper bag, but I wouldn't give him a bad part. You know, he might have 3 lines, but they're going to be good 3 lines, you know? And so there's love in the way he wrote the play.
Yeah, it seems like he loved humanity with all the bruises and bumps. Like even, I'd say, Richard III is loved by Shakespeare.
Oh no! All his villains, they're all three. You know, they have to have a three-dimensional element to it, or there'd be really no tragedy. You know.
And he's a commercial writer. He has to get butts in the seats. He's writing for big audiences. He has to keep bringing in. He's a theater owner, and I think it's really
a shareholder.
Well, to remember that the
capitalist.
shareholder side of this is that he had to write plays that would appeal to the general.
So as we're entering, you talked about politics of our current day, and I imagine that 25 years ago, the 3 of you thinking you would be here 25 years from that moment was unimaginable.
Mm-hmm.
Truly.
Well, because it was just year to year. It's just this annual thing, like an annual get-together with relatives. But you know, one thing that interests me so much about Shakespeare is that Shakespeare does not get into motive too much. It's the characters' relations to one another that provide the context of their actions. Mm. And so you don't really go into why this guy wants to get yellow stockinged for this woman. You know, he just does, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, yes, we've all had attractions in our life that may not have been warranted.
We've all put on those yellow stockings at least once.
But before we leave, you know, also why Shakespeare is different is that you can really do anything with it. I mean, you can make all the men women, you set in outer space, you can have gorillas, you can literally do anything.
Survives anything.
And it always works somehow. I mean, it doesn't always, you know, it's not always a great idea to do some of those things, but usually the play comes through. And often those kinds of things bring out new insight. I mean, it's sort of like you can just keep mining the material.
And you can make judicious cuts because he allows for that. You look at Pinter, you can't change a word of Pinter.
That's right, yeah.
Pinter
didn't have to take his plays on tour when the plague comes through.
If you mess with a Beckett play, his estate will come at you with 10 lawyers. Of course, and I have to say, there's one very, ridiculously basic thing about Shakespeare. You don't have to pay to use it.
Yes.
Modern plays, you got to pay to use it.
It's true.
So do you have a hope for the next 25 years for Mill Valley's Curtain Theater?
Well, I think that the issue of succession comes closer to the forefront as, we keep doing this. But I don't know. I really don't know if it has a natural endpoint or if it somehow can continue.
Will really depend on whether there are younger people than us interested in it, in that feel drawn to doing that, because that's what.
Just to loop back, why are we still here? I mean, it's really been a matter of certain people coming into the organization, in our little merry band, and injecting a new round of energy. We had a director named Susanna Rose Woods, in the mid-2000s, who really was, had a very strong relationship with their actors. I mean, like they wanted to all move in together, live together. I mean, they were very, very close to her. And she did maybe 4 shows or something, and then left, and then, I can't remember all the order, but Michele did some. But a key thing for us was when Steve Beecroft came in. He lives quite close to the park, artistic dancer, producer, and very much an organizer kind of personality. And he was with us, I think, 12 years, But he built bridges with the city, raised a lot of, was able to raise money. He had ties in corporate scenes. So, basically, I've always said if we would have died a long time ago if he hadn't come in. And, and the proximity is really key. I mean, just being around here, being able to grab Steve Coleman at the coffee shop, or go walk down to the city council and go to the council meeting. That was really key. And he left us. This will be our second show without him, and moved up to Vancouver Island to run a winery. But so here Michele and I, who live in Oakland and have to come over here the bridge all the time, it's like it becomes
we're not ideal.
It becomes difficult. So getting back and then going back to your question of what happens to us, I think it will definitely depend on the injection of new, people energy into the organization.
Perfectly from Mill Valley.
Yeah.
Because you want to keep it a community thing and not a kind of.
Well, you do want to keep it a community thing, but again, I think that the fortuitous, unexpected Mill Valley connection that was involved in establishing the thing has done us in very good stead. And I just wonder what the next generation would look like and where it would come from, because you can't manufacture it. There has to be a fortuitous aspect to it. There has to be, a different kind of casting call. But I think that what it will come down to is the place. Somebody seeing the place and saying, this is a place where it would really make sense to do a performance.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who, I remember coming here when I was 6 years old, and they're now 25 years later, they're adults, and it's become quite a tradition. I run into people who have just, I remember that place, They may not know the name Curtain Theater, but I saw Shakespeare there.
And, the Roots, I think John Hinkle was a WPA project, and I know that the first stage and the amphitheater were WPA projects. The first stage disintegrated, and they had to rebuild it. This is actually the second and somewhat larger stage.
Do you know what year it was rebuilt, or roughly? Do you know approximately when it was rebuilt?
A long time ago.
60s, maybe?
60s or 70s at the latest. It's been around for...
It's been around for, at that stage.
You could really use a new surface.
Could really use a new WPA project, yes.
Yes, unfortunately, we have the reverse of the WPA and the Washington at the moment. So.
Was there anything you'd like to close with?
Oh, I just, with appreciation for the fact that it's been a really good run. And I just think that it's amazing that the feelings that the people have who have been participating in this have been strong enough and positive enough. And that's really, it has been a labor of love.
And I think the quality level has actually gotten gradually just a little bit better each year, and the audiences have gotten just a little bit bigger each year. And we sort of have, we one of our strengths, I think, is we can't really grow much more than we are. So many people say, oh, if you're not growing, you're dying, like this kind of thing. No, it's like, find a balance and just, keep it that way. And essentially the natural scene there, we can't grow. We can't really get a bigger audience. We can't, we're as big as we'll ever be. And, that's not a bad place to be, really.
No, being free is.
Yeah, I think that the inherent sense of limits is actually positive from a creative standpoint.
Absolutely. In fact, I feel like we're kind of getting to the outside. I'm going to pull us back in a little bit. I have to say, for me, that it's just brought so much joy into my life, I realize, when I think about all the years of doing it. It's so beautiful, and I love being part of something that puts so much beauty into the world for that one little period of weeks. It makes me, for me, I get to be in the band that sits in the front, and I get to watch the play and the audience each time, and it's really heartwarming.
The other sort of surprising thing is I love the way the cast meets, young people meeting for the first time. And many times they are then lifelong friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the community of theater, that's something everywhere. I think that people who in theater have experienced, but it's special when you're outside and you're carrying your own costumes and you're camping, It brings a certain, I sort of combat friendships now.
Mm-hmm.
Trial by fire.
Trial by fire, yes.
I thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thus ends this episode of Behind the Curtain, a production of the Curtain Theatre. The Curtain Theatre of Mill Valley, California provides free outdoor theatre during the summer in Old Mill Park, focusing on Shakespeare and other classics. We do so out of love for great drama, and in the belief that the gathering of audience and artists around great plays in this intimate and beautiful setting adds immeasurably to the quality of life in the community. We exist gratefully through the city sponsorship of the Mill Valley Arts Commission and Parks and Recreation Department, along with generous community donations. Information is available at curtaintheatre.org. If we do meet again, why, we shall smile. If not, why then, this parting was well made.